If you were struggling to know what to do with your emotions, then I've got some strategies for you about the 4 ingredients that you need for emotional well-being. So let me take you through it.
Please, let's do it.
Now this is somewhat of a hierarchy, okay? These are the absolute basics moving forward. So the 4 ingredients that I've identified: self-care, self-validate, self-soothe, self-compassion. It's all about self and how you look after yourself with your emotions.
Okay.
All right, let's go through the basics. So this is the first ingredient for emotional well-being: self-care, right? And I turned it into an acronym.
Oh, nice.
We know that I love acronyms, right? I'm chasing down Marshall
too.
Linehan and making up my own acronyms. All right,
Nice.
first thing, absolute first thing, sleep. Because what we know, and kind of this is the research coming out of Matt Walker's sort of stuff and other places I'm sure, is within the brain you've got your frontal lobe as kind of your rational mind and your limbic system as your emotional mind. Mm-hmm. And typically speaking, when you are well rested, you've got the brake on your limbic system and the accelerator on your prefrontal cortex. So you're really, really good at making lots of decisions and rational thinking and being logical, and you're hitting the brake and kind of holding back in the limbic system. With sleep deprivation, which they characterize as 6 hours or less, that shifts. Mm-hmm. And you get the accelerator on your limbic system, because in sleep deprived states, the body is more focused on survival and the limbic system is more primitive.
Got it.
And the brake on the frontal cortex, which makes sense because when we're deprived, it's harder for us to think clearly, it's harder for us to strategize and organize and all those sort of things. So if you don't have good sleep, everything else is going to be harder.
Okay. And what does that sort of look like when you say the limbic system versus is it just looks like more sensitivity, more irritability?
Exactly. Yeah. More sensitivity, more emotional reactivity. So if you get triggered, it's going to be a bigger trigger. Okay. It's going to be a slower return to baseline if you're tired, because your amygdala kind of and all of those sort of systems is more highly aroused.
Got it. So easier triggers, bigger impacts, and slower to get back to baseline.
Yep.
Okay, so get some sleep.
Well, have a look at any toddler who's tired.
Nice.
And look at how well they can regulate their emotions.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Sleep is important for emotional well-being. Exercise. Partly just for good health, partly because exercise produces adenosine, which helps with sleep, and we've got other talks on that. Partly because intense exercise can help burn off adrenaline and cortisol that contributes to emotional sensitivity. It can help kind of regulate mood. I find that if I've got the shits with something, I'll go for a walk and kind of pounding it out on the pavement, and I can kind of process through my head and get some stuff shifting.
And sort of discharging the emotion as well.
Discharge the emotion. Yep. But also, as you've talked about, of ways of you can stop panic attacks by running up and down a flight of stairs a couple of times.
Yep.
So exercise is really important for managing emotions.
It's a good tool. It's a good tool.
Yeah. Light hygiene. All right. So your light exposure is also going to be something that regulates sleep, but we know that we need, like you've talked about, UVA exposure for regulating kind of blood pressure, and vitamin D exposure for managing mood, and the ways that kind of just getting some natural sunlight is actually really good for our mood and helping us to regulate systems. Food.
Yes.
Protein turns into tryptophan, which goes into 5-HTC, which goes into serotonin, which goes into melatonin.
Oh, look at you. Yeah.
So if you actually want more serotonin, which is kind of the happy mood hormone and neurotransmitter, it comes from protein.
Yep.
Right? So you need to make sure that you are getting enough protein in your diet that your body can actually manufacture and metabolize that down into serotonin that you need for mood and melatonin that you need for sleep.
Yep. Sugar
makes everything worse with the emotions, and we've done talks on how kind of sugar impacts anxiety and kind of all the hormonal stuff that happens there with sugar.
Sets us up for a roller coaster of sensitivity. Yeah.
Absolutely. So food choices are also going to be important for managing emotions. Clean. Now, I mean, this is kind of basic self-care, but how do you feel if, like, you've gone camping and you haven't had access to a shower for a couple of days? How do you feel when your mood is so low that you just can't be bothered kind of getting off the couch and you've been in the same pajamas for the last 3 days? When your hair's up in a messy bun because you can't even face the idea of a hairbrush. Big issue for you, I'm sure.
Hang on.
But how do you feel when your teeth get furry because you haven't brushed your teeth? Yeah. Right? So simple, basic things to look after your body involves kind of your cleanliness and your hygiene, which you just feel better about yourself when your body's clean. Now, if you're in the depths of the depression, Listerine and baby wipes was better than nothing, but ideally showering daily, attending to kind of personal hygiene, putting in the effort, kind of contextual, whatever's actually relevant for the day, but actually going to the effort of making sure that your body is clean and also your space is clean. Kind of tidy up your space.
So less chaos in the space.
Less chaos in the space.
And I guess looking after yourself is also sort of acting out the fact that you're valuable enough to look after.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, avoid your kryptonite. You pick this word for me.
Okay.
Now, kryptonite, we talked about kind of the general stuff is avoid mood-altering substances. That's what the Linehan approach is. But you pick kryptonite because you're like, well, sometimes substances aren't the things that suck the life out of you. Sometimes it's toxic relationships. Sometimes it's your phone and too much time playing Candy Crush. Sometimes it's gambling. That was a thing. Maybe not so much these days. I don't know. What is the thing that sucks the life out of you, and can you either cut it out or at least reduce it?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we gravitate to things that we really probably know we shouldn't, but it's just our default setting. So recognizing it, okay, that's actually my kryptonite. It's not something I should be engaging with all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, routine and rest. As humans, we like consistency, and knowing what's coming is helpful for our mood and our predictability. So get up at the same time every day, go to bed at the same time every day, which helps with this. But then also know which days you're going to go and exercise, kind of have a plan, even kind of plans around meals so you can make sure that the kind of food choices are balanced. Making sure that you've scheduled in time for some of the other stuff that you need to be doing is kind of when our body knows what's coming next, then we have kind of more consistency and stability across moods.
Nice.
Whilst also remembering rest is important, right? And we've done this when we talked about our threat, drive, soothe. So we did that overcoming distress video a couple of months back, where if you are overusing your drive system and you are constantly pushing yourself to get stuff done, task-focused, achievement-based, performance outcomes, you'll be exhausted.
Yeah, without rest, performance starts to tank.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in order to maintain stability across your emotions and to have good emotional well-being, you need to make time for rest. And rest is kind of, sleep is rest for your body, but what is restful for your soul? What is it that actually makes you feel restored and invigorated? For me, that's not like, sleep does not make me feel invigorated. Sitting around on the couch having a good laugh with my girlfriends is what makes me feel invigorated. So that is actually more restorative to me than 6 hours of sleep.
Okay.
So what is restful for your body? What is restful for your mind? What is restful for your soul?
Nice.
Which brings to the last one of engage. As humans, we are social creatures. We were built to live in tribes and family units. COVID's had a huge impact on isolation for a lot of us. And some people may have lost the skill in being able to kind of engage in that social connection. But we need this. We need socialization in order to have good emotional well-being, because humans do not do well in isolation. And we've seen this.
I mean, the more extroverted you are, the more you need this.
Yes.
It's sort of, it's not optional. It's not optional for anyone. But if you're introverted, it can be quite effortful and draining.
Yep.
Okay, but if you're extroverted, it's like oxygen.
Yeah, it absolutely is to us. So this may be that you call someone instead of texting.
Nice.
It may be that you meet up with one person for coffee if you're an extrovert. You meet up with 25 people. Sorry, one person if you're an introvert, 25 people if you're an extrovert. But making sure that there is time for socialization in amongst all of that, because that is incredibly important for self-care and for your emotions.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to pause there. Stay tuned because we're releasing video number 2 next on the second ingredient. We'll see you soon.